For over 50 years, scientists told us the moon was dead, quiet, predictable, completely understood. They had the data to prove it. Thousands of photographs, spectral analyses, orbital scans, all of it pointing to the same conclusion. A gray, silent world where nothing had happened in 3 billion years. And then 4 astronauts flew there, and the first thing they saw broke everything we thought we knew. On April 1st, 2026, 4 astronauts climbed into a spacecraft named Integrity and left Earth. Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen. Their mission: fly around the moon, farther from home than any human being had traveled in over half a century. What NASA told the public was simple: a flyby, observation, photography. What actually happened was something no one was prepared for. 7 hours, 4 trained human eyes, 10,000 photographs, and a list of discoveries that scientists at Johnson Space Center are still trying to explain. Halfway through the flyby, the moon went dark. The spacecraft had passed behind the lunar disk. The sun disappeared behind the moon's edge. And for the first time in human history, someone witnessed a solar eclipse from the other side. 54 minutes of totality. No human being had ever seen anything like it. Stars appeared. Venus, Mars, Saturn, Mercury, all visible at once alongside the sun's glowing corona, normally washed out by daylight, now the only source of light in the entire sky. Victor Glover looked at the solar streamers radiating outward and compared them to the spotlight on top of the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. And then, the surface started flashing. 6 times. Brief points of white to bluish-white light appearing on the darkened lunar surface. Each flash lasted less than a millisecond. Commander Wiseman said they were as fast as a camera shutter opening and closing. In the science evaluation room at Johnson Space Center, there were audible screams, not of alarm, of pure scientific delight. What the crew was witnessing were meteoroid impacts, small rocks, larger than dust, smaller than a boulder, slamming into the surface at tens of thousands of miles per hour, and vaporizing on contact. On Earth, objects that size never reach the ground. The atmosphere burns them up long before they arrive. On the moon, there is nothing to slow them down. Every particle that approaches the lunar surface arrives at full speed and leaves a permanent scar. Scientists had expected maybe 1 impact flash, 2 if they were lucky. They got 6. And that number has very serious implications for anyone who wants to build a base up there. But the impact flashes weren't the strangest thing they saw. On the near side of the moon, there is a feature that has puzzled scientists since the 1600s. You can see it from Earth with a backyard telescope. A bright swirling pattern spread across 60 kilometers of dark volcanic plain. First spotted 400 years ago, studied by every major observatory on the planet. And to this day, no one can explain what it is. It's called Reiner Gamma. Here's what makes it genuinely strange. It casts no shadow. It has no topography. It is completely flat. The swirl pattern is purely a difference in how much light the surface reflects, painted across terrain that is physically identical to everything around it. Beneath it is a magnetic anomaly, a pocket of magnetized rock generating a localized magnetic field strong enough to form its own miniature magnetosphere, 360 kilometers across. The moon has no global magnetic field. It lost that billions of years ago when its core cooled. But scattered across the crust, there are remnants, fossil magnetic fields, locked into rock that solidified when the moon still had a functioning core. The leading theory is that this field deflects incoming solar wind particles. The solar wind slowly darkens exposed lunar soil over hundreds of millions of years. Where the field shields the surface, the soil stays bright. Where it has gaps, the soil darkens even faster. The result is a pattern of bright and dark lanes, tracing the invisible shape of a magnetic field, written in the color of ancient dust. Except, the theory doesn't fully work. The magnetic anomaly doesn't align with the geological structures around it. There's no corresponding impact basin on the opposite side of the moon. No clean origin story. No confirmed explanation. 400 years of observation, and we still don't know what made it. The Artemis 2 crew photographed it directly. For the first time, trained human eyes observed Rainer Gamma from lunar space with the specific intent of mapping color and brightness variations that instruments had only hinted at. Those photographs are still being processed. What they reveal could finally solve one of the moon's oldest mysteries, or deepen it. But here is the part of this mission that almost no one is talking about. Mounted on a wall inside the Orion capsule were a set of small devices, about the size of a USB thumb drive. Each one contained living human tissue, not simulated tissue, not synthetic material. Actual living human bone marrow, grown from cells donated by the astronauts themselves before the flight. The experiment was called Avatar, a virtual astronaut tissue analog response. Scientists at Harvard's Wise Institute had taken stem cells from the crew members, cultivated them onto organ-on-a-chip devices that replicated the structure of human bone marrow, and sent them to the moon. The chips flew the same trajectory as their human donors. They absorbed the same radiation. They experienced the same microgravity for the entire 10-day mission. Twin chips remained on the ground as controls. Bone marrow was chosen deliberately. It is one of the most radiation-sensitive tissues in the human body. It produces red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Damage it, and you compromise the immune system, the blood's ability to carry oxygen, its ability to clot. When the chips returned to the lab, researchers performed single-cell RNA sequencing, mapping how thousands of individual genes changed during the flight. Nobody expects the Artemis 2 crew to show signs of radiation sickness. The dose was too low for that. What they're looking for is subtler, molecular signatures of stress, early indicators of accelerated aging, changes in gene expression that might, over a longer mission, cascade into something far more serious. Because this wasn't really about 10 days. This was about 3 years, the time it would take to reach Mars and come back. If scientists can identify what 10 days of deep space did to personalized bone marrow models, they can begin predicting what 30 days would do, what 90 days would do, what 3 years would do, and more importantly, they can start designing the countermeasures. The Avatar chips are not a science experiment. They are a preview of the future of human space travel, written in the biology of 4 people who spent 10 days living it. 10 days. That's all this was. 10 days of weightlessness. 10 days of radiation exposure. 10 days in a spacecraft the size of a small RV. And the list of changes happening inside their bodies was already this long. Muscle atrophy beginning within 72 hours. Bone mineral density starting to decline. Fluid shifting toward the head, flattening the eyeballs, increasing pressure on the optic nerve. The heart shrinking, not from disease, but from pure mechanical efficiency, because there was no gravity left to pump against. Living human tissue orbiting the moon, absorbing radiation that no instrument had ever measured this close. This was 10 days. NASA has plans for missions lasting months. Artemis 4 aims to put astronauts on the lunar surface in 2028 for extended stays. A Mars mission would take roughly 3 years. round trip. 3 years of everything the Artemis II crew experienced, magnified, compounded, without the protection of Earth's magnetic field, without any option for early return. The bone loss alone would be staggering. 18 months at 1 to 1.5% per month means an astronaut arriving at Mars could have lost a quarter of their hip bone density. The radiation would accumulate far beyond the CT scan equivalent of a lunar flyby. Galactic cosmic rays don't stop. They don't take days off. And there is no magnetosphere between Earth and Mars. We sent 4 people around the moon and brought them back. The question Artemis II was really asking, the question all those experiments and saliva booklets and tiny bone marrow chips were designed to answer, is whether we can send people much farther, for much longer, and still bring them back whole. We thought we knew the moon. We had 50 years of data to prove it. Turns out the data was a rough draft. The colors are wrong, or at least far more complex than our instruments suggested. The topography more dramatic than photographs ever conveyed. The surface being reshaped by impacts more frequently than anyone expected. And one of the most visible features on the near side, a bright swirl you can see from your own backyard with a decent telescope, remains a genuine mystery that no one can fully explain. The moon is the closest thing to us in space, 240,000 miles away. We've been staring at it since before we were human. And after all that time, after all those missions and all that data, 4 people flew there with cameras in their own eyes. And the first thing they noticed was how much we missed. 10,000 photographs, still being processed. The data from this mission won't provide a final answer. It will provide a first draft. And in that first draft, written in the biology of 4 astronauts who spent 10 days in the most hostile environment any human has entered in over 50 years, we might find the beginning of a map for everything that comes next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.